Hi everyone, welcome to the webinar. We are coming to you live from UT Arlington. We are Dr. Peggy Symington, Dr. John Leffingwell, and Dr. Lisa Martin. And so hello and good morning, actually good afternoon. I'm a little mixed up. So it's one. And here are your co-hosts and virtual guides. Dr. Diane Galloway wasn't able to join us today, so I'll be sharing some of her information. And we'll go ahead and get started. We have Dr. John Leffingwell, myself, and Lisa Martin. Remember, these are just our opinions, and we are going to be sharing some ideas to help you with behavior management. And so if you want to speak, press talk. However, in this session, we're going to keep it to just our moderators speaking. So use the chat window to ask questions along the way. And no one can see you. We're going to keep video and audio off except for our speakers. And then I suggest you make a list of things to Google later. We encourage you to use emoticons, so go ahead and type a greeting in the chat window like hello, that kind of thing. We'll go about an hour today. And our mission here is we are building digital community for new teachers. I think most of us joining today are pre-service teachers. We're going to do a poll in a minute and see, kind of where people are at. And so we'll vote in just a minute. And the voting tool is next to the hand and in the participants window, and I'll lead you through that. So we want to share our collective wisdom. We want to interact. We want to participate in innovative high-tech ways like webinars. And there's a blog for us to go back to and post. There's a podcast by Dr. Leffingwell on behavior management. So we encourage you to check that out. And in January, our topic is teaching students of poverty, a very high-interest topic for people who work in schools, like Title I schools or other schools with poverty. Other spring topics are response to intervention, differentiation, data-driven instruction in February. And in March, we have teaching bilingual ESL, and in April, technology integration. There's such a push towards that we want to help people. Again, the blog link is here, blog.uta.edu. Oh, let's ask, I think if you have audio on, Ryan, if you don't mind turning it off. We don't want anyone's audio on except for speakers. So let's pause for a minute. And if you have clicked the talk button, you need to unclick it. Let's stop for a second. That might be causing the echo. So let's see. Anyone who is on this, go ahead and be sure you are not pressing talk. So Ryan, if you can unpress talk, that would be great. And, okay, how's that? I think that's what was causing the problem. It takes a village, I'm telling you. Okay, so what I want you to do now is interact. So the pen tool is, there's a little bar next to the chat window, and it's a pen. It's a virtual pen. And I want you guys to make a mark where you're at right now. I bet most of us are in the same area, so we're going to have many X's over Dallas. You can also type it in the chat window. So type where you're at. So I'm in Arlington, so I'm going to type in Arlington. We're all, in Arlington and the Metroplex if we're faculty here. So go ahead and just, if you want to. This is optional, but it's kind of fun just to see if anyone's from is anyone from an area outside of the DFW area? That would be interesting to see. I think we're all from this area, or most of us, of Carrollton, Arlington. The pen is the third square down. There's like a rectangle, and it's the third square down. Oh, we have, and Mark, you're in Arizona right now, or you're from there? So, very cool. Okay, from there. Okay, good. So here's where we're at now. Looks like most of us, and somebody's somebody was just kidding about being in the middle of the Bahamas. Okay, let's keep going. Thanks for putting where you're from or typing it in the chat window. It's time for a poll. We're wondering who's joining us. So if you're a pre-service teacher or an undergrad, the voting tool is next to the hand, and so you can vote. There's a happy face. This is where the names of the participants are. There's a happy face, a clock, a hand, an A, B, C, D, E, and you can vote right now. Voting is optional. I'm going to put E because I'm faculty. So let's just kind of see, and then I'll display the poll results in a minute. We'll see who we are. I think we are almost all pre-service teachers. That's awesome. Okay, I'm going to publish the poll results in a few seconds. So we're still voting. And let's give it, and you can type it in the chat window if you just don't feel like voting with the poll. So here we go. I'm going to publish the results. We are almost all pre-service teachers. E, and then a couple people that didn't vote. I'm assuming you're probably pre-service teachers or faculty. So that's great. We can kind of get a sense of who's joining us today. And, you know, let's go ahead and get started because you're here to learn tips on behavior management. And we wanted to just introduce the webinar experience. Remember, we are all lifelong learners. What do you hope to learn? So go ahead and type something in the chat window. Some of you have already done this, but you can feel free to type it again. And we will also be happy to answer questions along the way. So Dr. Martin's here, Dr. Brown, I believe, is here, and myself, we will be reading through the chat window throughout the session. So feel free to type comments at any time. And so we've got a couple comments. Techniques to use in regards to behavior management. Yes, we'll talk about techniques. Who's taking notes? Just put yes if you're taking notes. I know that sounds like such a teachery thing to say, but I think it really helps to take notes. And I'm a teacher, so I had to say it. But yeah, take notes even if you're taking notes on your phone or iPad. Awesome. Okay, great. How to deal with bullying. I think some of these, we're not addressing bullying per se, but some of these will get at preventing problems, and I think Dr. Leffingwell can maybe touch on that. How we can prevent problems. So I'm going to jump right in. I'm going to let Dr. Leffingwell get his audio set up, and I'm going to introduce him while he's doing that. So we're actually all in the same room together right now, and he is an associate professor of education at UT Arlington. Some of you may have had him as a professor. He is licensed as and certified as a psychologist in the state of Texas. He is also an instructor in our fairly brand new, school counseling certification program. He teaches a variety of classes. He was just telling us he has taught more than 20 classes here at UTA. Is that right? 20 different classes here at UTA, and just some of them are here, and you can see they almost all tie in with learning and behavior. And so without further ado, I'm going to let Dr. Leffingwell take over and share some advice for us. Feel free to type in questions or comments, even if you like thumbs up, happy face, I agree type of feedback. Please feel free to use the chat window. So go ahead, Dr. Leffingwell. We can't
Good afternoon. I am glad to be with you. I want you to stop worrying and start doing. And what we're going to do today is look at a system that is just a thumbnail of what we do in my classes, in the classroom management classes. But I want you to think about how you can apply this, because give you an example. If you have a paper to write and you go to the show, you'll sit there and worry about that you should have written the paper before you went to the show. Doing means you do the paper, then you go to the show, and you don't worry. You enjoy the show. So let's look at some behaviors. Incidentally, those of you that teach, there are literally billions of possibilities. No one can give you any surefire answer to any one behavior because you have billions of reasons why people are not happy or they're sad. If you look at most behavior as anxiety produced, you're more likely to be kind and thoughtful and helpful in your response. Before you go into a class, those of you that are pre-service, one of the things that you need to do is decide what behaviors you want that are positive. Your brain is like a computer. You need to give it positive examples. For example, let me give you 3 very quick. One is active listening. And the rule on active listening is when I talk, you listen. And when you talk, we listen. And that way, people are listening to one another. Adolescents are notorious for talking over one another, as are some adults. We won't mention any names. The other rule is active participation. When you do an activity, whether it's cooperative learning, a lab, whatever you're doing, you expect everybody to do what your lesson is, participate in your lesson. You expect them to do assignments when due, so that you're not reminding them, you're not begging them, you're not whining. Come on now, turn that in, come on now. That's begging, and it puts you in a down position. So you're going to have a definite rule of when assignments are due, and if they don't do it, then there's a consequence. If they have a reason, if we're in the hospital, they have a family member that's ill or whatever, that's up to you to decide how much leniency to give. A 4th one is respect. You're not going to tolerate any verbal abuse of anybody, any bullying in any way, shape, or form. You're not going to tolerate people making fun of one another's religion, their ethnicity, their affection orientation, ad infinitum. So respect is saying positive things to people, giving people positive critiques when they make a presentation. Those are just a handful, but they're all positive. Notice I have not mentioned not chewing gum, don't start any rule with not. It just creates confusion. Your expectation effect. This I want you to expect, that as you teach, as you gain experience, you will enjoy teaching more and more. And you will do that because people will be more responsive to you. When you expect good behavior, your behavior changes without you ever knowing it. For example, if you expect them to participate, to be supportive, to be congenial, etc., you give them more eye contact, you call on them, you face them, you interact with them, you use proximity control, which is moving around the room. You do a number of things to demonstrate your positive expectations. You let them know what they're doing right in no uncertain terms. And if necessary, then you will stop any problem behaviors. We will get to problem behaviors in just a minute. Obtain a baseline of frequency of magnitude of behavior to be changed. Oh, that sounds like psychobabble, doesn't it? But what it means is that when you have a logbook of student grades, whether it's on the computer or on paper, that a student might get a 0, but they must make that up. What you don't want are for students to get several 0s, and statistically they have no way back. So when they have no way back, then it's chaos. So you're going to intercept any inappropriate or maladaptive behaviors. Notice I did not say bad. Maladaptive is non-helpful. That you're going to intercept any maladaptive behavior at low levels. It's like in a relationship, whatever the relationship is, that when someone does something that bothers you, you let them know before you resent them, before you get angry, so that the relationship does not suffer. It can be resolved. There will always be issues to be resolved. Modeling. Do you like what you teach? Are you happy to be there? Are you well prepared? Can you focus on students who model appropriate behavior? Yes. When you walk in a room and you say, I'm glad everybody's ready, and John is not ready, then John feels the pressure. I need to get ready without you saying a word to him. Why are all the bad kids named John? I don't know. But you model enthusiasm, you model support, you model all the good things you want. You're modeling all these positive behaviors. Structural learning situation, so desirable behavior can occur. All this is scaffolding. Okay, you take any task, any assignment, you break it down into small steps so that they can achieve success with each step. And that gives them self-confidence, self-efficacy. They learn that they can be instrumental in their own growth, and you can recognize their growth. So they get support from within and from without. Reinforcement. Reinforcement is not throwing M&Ms at them. Reinforcement is effective because you're telling someone what they're doing right. And you're focusing on the behavior. It is specific and it is sincere. You know, you're doing your essay better because you did X, Y, and Z, not you're the most wonderful English student in the world. No, that's not sincere. It's not specific to the behavior. The reason for doing this is that you learn to separate the behavior from the person so that when you must correct them, they don't take it as an assault. Okay? Verbal praise is vitally important. You know, meeting people at the door, telling them, I'm glad to see you. I just had a teacher in my classroom who has taught 29 years. She does this. She comments. She tells them what she likes as far as they have a new shirt or they wear a color that looks good on them. And she is there. She's facing the person. She's close to them. If someone has a problem, she can walk down the aisle in the classroom. They can, maybe if they're shy, they can just look up at her like, I need your help, but I can't ask you for help. And so she's aware of that. Okay, and by helping people, this is a great reinforcement. Giving them time, giving them attention. This is why you come early and you stay late. Those of you that are concerned about finding jobs, I've had principals tell me who have never been in a student teacher's classroom, they come early, they stay late. They tutor people, they help people. They know what you're doing, even though you don't see them. And believe me, I know a lot of them. I've had them as students. Token, a point system. This is what is vital. 22% of high school students have test anxiety and or speech anxiety. So they need some system to pull their own grades up so they don't worry about tests. If they can't do well on a test, they can do well on daily grades, on oral reports, written reports, 5,000 other ways that they can pull their own grades up. So what you're doing is you want to get to a point where they are self-managing, they are self-regulating, and you're helping them do this. Contingency management is simply a contract. When you do X, you get Y. When you do your essay, then you can go to the show. If they want to talk about homecoming, fine. We'll talk about homecoming, contingent upon getting our work done. We have an assignment to do. We're going to do it in class so you don't do homework, and then we can talk about homecoming or who's the cutest in the zoo or whatever else.
Oh,
they want.
Leffingwell,
yes.
One question in the chat window, it says, would tokens be a means to make sure grades are always recoverable?
Yeah, that's what a point system is. Yes, that there are so many points. They can always add points by doing whatever it is that is needed. That way, they take more responsibility. Giving free time. They'd love to have some time to, whatever. For social talk, let them have social talk contingent upon getting the work done. Then they won't be talking during the lesson as much. Look at a pre-mac. A pre-mac is any activity that is pleasurable after you work. Okay, so you do your work and then you go out and you do your gourmet cooking or practice photography or play tennis or whatever you enjoy doing, reading a mystery. Okay, that's a pre-mac, any pleasurable activity. And they like to talk about issues that are going on in school. So that's a good pre-mac. Now some of you are saying, well, what if none of this works? What if I run into maladaptive behavior? Okay, what are 3 things you cannot tolerate, you cannot ignore? One is verbal abuse of people, including bullying. You're not going to tolerate someone bullying you. You're not going to tolerate, or anyone else. You're not going to tolerate a student saying, you can't make me do this. My answer to someone who says, you can't make me is, it's not my job. If you refuse to cooperate with me, you will see an administrator. And one of the things to do when you are applying for a job, ask what the due process is for behavior issues so that you don't worry. The teacher I had in class who has sent 3 people to the office did so because they absolutely refused to cooperate with her. And she said, fine, go talk to the vice principal. Next. So the behaviors you cannot tolerate are verbal abuse of people, including you, physical abuse of people, which mostly is unwanted touching. Now, if you've noticed in high school classrooms, high school students notoriously rub one another's back. They pat one another. They play with their jewelry. They play with their clothing. They're like puppies. They just touch one another. Okay? Now, how do you know when that is maladaptive? When it bothers you or it bothers someone else. You must stop it. Okay? If they come up and pat your hand, or one of the common things that happens with us is that students will come up and grab our forearm and say, let me tell you, let me tell you. That is a way to hang on to you, so you'll pay attention to them. And you simply tell them, you don't have to touch me. I'm listening to you. Just step back. I'm listening. We'll talk. If you need more time, we'll schedule another time after today or after right now. A third thing you can't tolerate is physical abuse of property. A chair is for sitting, not for hitting someone over the head. In physics labs, they have metal rulers, and kids, have fun playing swords with them. Well, they're for measuring, not for sword fighting. Okay, just little things. You don't use a computer to as a ledge for your soft drink. Another thing you won't tolerate is academic dishonesty or cheating. Now, will someone cheat? Yes. If you look at 95% of cheating is done because of anxiety. People study and study and study and they're still not sure, then they'll probably cheat. Maybe. I don't know. If they do, then you'll deal with it. How do you stay calm to deal with these behaviors? One is you don't take ownership. You can't control 130 students in 5 classes, or how many there are. You can't control 20. You can't control 1, absolutely. So don't internalize their poutiness, their rolling of the eyes, their whatever the behavior is that is counterproductive. You did not cause it. Maybe they had a fight with their boyfriend or girlfriend. Maybe they're worried about money. Maybe there are millions of maybes out there. You would go nuts trying to figure them all out. and you'd quit. You won't stay. Another way to do it is give yourself time. If you don't know how to respond, don't. Just say, I'll see you at 3:30. If you make a mistake, admit it. You know, we all make mistakes. I still do. It's okay. You just go on, and you just say, I made a mistake, and I misspoke, and here's the right answer, or whatever it is. But you don't deal with behaviors in the immediate that you can't. And when they come in at 3:30 and you sit down, everybody is more calm. Or whenever you do it, give yourself a time break. Extinction of a behavior is simply ignoring petty little behaviors. Somebody asked to borrow paper during the class. They're not being rude. They're just asking for paper or pencil, whatever it is. If you react to spilt milk the way you do smoking pot, then everything will, you know, everything becomes major disaster. Okay? Just let go of the little behaviors. If someone in your home needs to go to the restroom, you don't say, where are you going? Why do you have to go? When did you find out? Are you sure? No. Why do we do that in school? I don't know. It's ridiculous. Some schools don't. They just get a pass, and they go, and they come back. And they're treated like adults, and guess what? They act like adults. Negative reinforcement is just telling the person how to escape. You don't want to do homework tonight? Fine, let's get it done in class. Okay? You don't want to fail? Fine, come in for tutoring. Here's something else. When you interview for a job, you might want to look at, some schools have mandatory tutoring policies, and it's extremely helpful. In one district, I know they come in at 7:15 in the morning for each teacher in which they're making less than 75. It's just done, and there's no excuse. If they can't do it, then parents are called and they bring them whatever. Anyway, it works because the whole school expects it. But letting someone know how to avoid failure helps them to not engage in it. If you have to punish, remember this: punishment is the least effective way to change behavior. The very least. Okay? With high school students, a key type of punishment that they hate is taking their time, because they are like lemmings. When all of their friends leave school and they're not leaving with them, they panic. That's why they have to text one another all the time. What are you doing? I'm here. Who are you talking to? Oh, wouldn't you hate to have that much anxiety again? If someone cheats, let's use cheating as an example. Okay, do not make an issue of cheating in front of their classmates. You just say, I'll see you later. And you don't ask them if they cheated, you tell them, because you know it. Because if you ask them if they cheated, they're going to say no. Now they're cheating, now they're lying. Oh my goodness, how terrible. So you avoid that. Punishment is fast, it's done that day. It's fair, they fail one test, they have one test to make up. They don't fail the whole semester. Now here's the good part. It's forgotten. When they come back into class, you call on them like it never happened. You respond to them like it never happened. And you tell them on the QT, it is over.
What does that mean, QT?
Quiet, just between you and I. Okay. People who fail over and over again cannot discriminate time. They use two of the dirtiest words in the English language, which are always and never. My two colleagues sitting with me just gasped. Thought I was going to say something worse. Always and never. Always and never kill hope. And you kids who fail or who have struggled will say, I've never been good at this. I've always had trouble with it. Never, always, never, always. Which reinforces never and always. Okay? So, frankly, when you go in and you teach a history class and a kid says, I hate history, I said, that's okay. I love history enough for both of us. We're going to get through it. Now, if you want to take it again next year, you can. Or we can do it in one try. I'll help you. Competing response to maladaptive behavior is simply tutoring or scaffolding all over again. So if a person chooses to fail, they have to make a conscious choice to do it. And then you tell them, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you got up early to come in and be tutored. I'm glad you're worrying less. Use I messages. They're non-punitive, and they're friendly, and they're helpful, and it shows that you're a real person. So that's it in a nutshell. That's like looking at an elephant, one toenail, and trying to describe the whole elephant. Yeah. Okay, I appreciate your time.
All right, let's give a virtual applause for Dr. Leffingwell. And then type any comments in the chat window. Type any questions. We still have more one or two. We still have 2 more speakers, so don't log out unless you need to. Any questions for Dr. Leffingwell? You can type them. You can type them. I'm scrolling through the chat to see if there is any. What did Dr. Leffingwell mean by iMessages? What did you mean by iMessages? What did you mean by iMessages?
iMessages are when you say, I would appreciate, or I'm glad you're doing better. I'm glad you're coming in for tutoring. I'm glad. It's just that support coming from you personally.
Okay, great. So yes. Okay, great. So yes, is that like can you give an example of an I statement? Like of an I statement? Okay. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Great. Sorry. I was typing in the chat window. Thank you. I've heard those are really powerful I statements. Yeah. Somebody asked to look at the last slide. Do you have any more questions? Okay. We did iMessages.
What's the last slide?
This negative reinforcement.
Yeah.
Any more questions? Any more questions? We're good. Okay. I think that we're good. Okay. We're going to keep going. If you have any more questions, just type them in the chat window. Well, good. I'm going to go through Diane Galloway's information. Her information, I think, draws on her experience as a former secondary teacher and administrator. Here's her bio. She is currently the mid-level program coordinator at UT Arlington. She has been a principal in high school and middle school, and she has been a state administrator working with drug treatment and prevention. So she's got a diverse background. At UTA, she teaches mid-level schools and curriculum course. And so her information is top 10 classroom management mistakes. And feel free to type comments or questions in the chat window, and we'll do our best to let you know what we think. Okay, so here we go. So clear out the clutter. That's something. Number 10, keep your teaching fresh by having a place and space to organize. I know I've been in classrooms where you walk in and you're like, where is the teacher's desk? There's papers stacked a foot high. It gives the wrong impression, I think. And so when you can at least clear out the physical clutter, it kind of frees yourself for being more organized. The students see you as organized. Students know where to go to when they're finished with their work. They know that there's a space for it. There's a clear space labeled. So labeling everything is great. If you guys can think about ways to organize even before you get in your classroom, I would go to something like Pinterest and look at how teachers organize their classroom spaces. I would visit classrooms, with permission, and just get ideas. We talked last time about community, and Dr. Brown talked quite a bit about environment and the place that plays in creating a safe space, predictable space, I would say, for students. Okay, mistake number 10, remember number 9. Remember these are the mistakes, and we'll tell you what to do instead. Take the bait and argue. Sometimes, actually more than sometimes, students that are causing trouble, they'll say something to kind of get your goat, so to speak, and so don't let that happen. Dr. Brown says it takes 2 to argue, so you need to stay calm, stay centered, building on what Dr. Leffingwell says, pick your battles in a nutshell. And here's a quote from Dr. Galloway: "I care about you too much to argue with you. You're welcome to come back and meet with me." So that's something that Dr. Galloway would say in her teaching. Number 8, same old, same old. You know, tell your students why what you're teaching is important. If you're enthused, if you're involved and engaged with your curriculum, it's likely that that enthusiasm and engagement will also carry over to your students. If you're acting like it's torture, they're going to pick up on that. And students are watching and noticing everything you do and say. So I would say tell them why their learning is important. And so you're not just grudgingly working through the curriculum. Students ask, what are we going to do today, and why is this important? And I would say write that on the board before you start. Here's our agenda, here's what we're doing, so they know what's coming up. Most classrooms require this, actually, for you to post your objectives, for you to make learning objectives clear. This can help you with management because you have a plan. You have a curricular plan. And these are just a few examples of getting those procedures down, so they're not saying, Miss, I don't know what to do. You can say, it's right here. It's visual. You didn't just tell them once. It's also in a visual format. And it's also step by step. So mistake number 7, and then one of our participants says, post it in a visible area. Yes. In fact, I know for a fact that more schools are requiring teachers to post objectives and things, and also turn in their lesson plans. Number 7, the mistake number 7 is calling kids out. And Dr. Leffingwell just mentioned this, actually. Don't say, Jose, sit down. You know, you start with the class. Everyone should be sitting down now. I'm looking around to see who's following directions. Don't ever pick on a kid, although I have to be honest, I have done the eye contact thing where I sometimes will stare a kid down. The gaze, the look. I don't want to scare you through the webinar. But I can do the look. I won't do it now. But and the thing about that eye contact as an alternative to calling out, you hold the gaze. So don't just let it go. Hold the gaze. If they're messing around over there, they will keep looking back to see if you have held the gaze and that you're looking at them. And you don't have to make a mean face. Just hold your poker face instead of calling people's names out. So give cues. I've done gestures. So, this is a classic gesture. There are others, that you don't have to do. You don't have to yell across the room, and we've all been in that classroom where they're yelling across the room. It's not pleasant. Gentle reminders, get to work. We're all doing writing notebook right now. It's math time. Short and sweet. And then the private conferences. Let's talk one-on-one. Come over to my desk, and I'll help you get started, or we'll help you be successful. Mistake number 5, organize your classroom for your movement. I think that has to do with what Dr. Leffingwell was saying about boundaries, having that personal space between you and some personal space. Okay, this is mistake number 4. It's kind of an urban legend of teaching. Don't smile until December, or don't smile until next May. We've all heard it, and as a new teacher, you probably are like, should I really do that? And we would say lighten up. And so what do you guys think about the don't smile and the don't smile thing? Here's my opinion. Be businesslike. That's always what I've heard. Be businesslike. Let them know you mean business. Be consistent. But you can smile. Just be consistent and businesslike. So they go, oh, Miss Simonson, she means business. When she says blah, blah, she means it. And you can still smile as long as you're businesslike. So we have got a comment, and we'll make students dislike you if you can't lighten up. Have a sense of humor. No matter how stressful it is, if you don't laugh, it has bad health effects on your body, on your mind. You'll go home exhausted. It's just good to have some time in the day, maybe even to build that in your curriculum. Read a funny book, tell an appropriate joke, that kind of thing. So here's just kind of a visual, thing to lighten up. Okay, here's another problem. You tell them directions, but you've never rehearsed it. Especially with little ones, they need to go through the motions. You've got to rehearse. Okay, it's the first week of school. Let's practice lining up. Let's see how we do. Remember our procedures. You posted them on the board, and you practice, practice, practice. I'd say the first week of school is practicing routines. In January, when you come back from break, you practice again. procedures, and Dr. Galloway just suggested it's very procedural at the airport. We kind of know what to do. I would say that lunch is a procedure. When you go to lunch, you know how to line up. We all get through the line, that kind of thing. Finally, you need praising kids for doing what's expected. She says use politeness instead. Thank you. I use thank you a lot. It's very neutral, right? Thank you. And then number 2, punishing the group. So one person isn't in line for lunch. The whole class has to sit down, put their heads down for a minute. You know, that's not good. That's not good to drag down the whole group because of one person's behavior. So don't punish them, correct. Say, I think we forgot what we're supposed to do. I try to do the collective thing, and then redo it, retell procedures. Let's try that again. Okay, number 1 kind of goes back to overall our mission in teaching. If you don't love it, you won't be an effective teacher. It really makes your days long and contributes to burnout if you don't love your job. You will burn out if you don't enjoy teaching. So keep these things in mind. What did you learn from Dr. Galloway's tips? Dr. Brown, did you want to speak, Dr. Brown? We'd love to hear from you. Or if you want to turn your video on and
okay,
on Dr. Brown or Dr. Smith.
I turned my video. Okay. Now, I was just agreeing I was agreeing with some of Dr. Galloway's thoughts that especially the collective punishment idea is really one of my pet peeves. You know, there's 1 or 2 kids, those are the ones you can pull to the side later and talk to them about the issue, but you know, punishing kids as a group just creates, I think, resentment towards you, and they don't respect you, and they don't think you're fair. And kids pick up on fairness and justice and those ideas, especially, you know, most of you will be most of my elementary students are working with kids. If you think of, not to get too theoretical, but thinking of Piaget, you know, when they're in the concrete, you know, operational phase, they're very black and white. And so fairness becomes a huge issue. They want, you know, they can't understand the concept that life isn't always fair that teenagers might be able to understand. So, you know, being fair is I think important. And giving them time to just be a kid. Giving them those free times to talk and to move and to, you know, be kids and not just expect them to be little robots all day long. That's pretty much
okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good. Anyone else? Yeah. So definitely the caring factor, respect, mutual trust. Great. Okay. Good. Thank you. And someone says we do a lot of dancing in 1st grade. So okay. Great. Okay. I'm going to share just a few tips. I'm going to keep this short. We know that your time is precious, and so I want to share what has worked for me. As some of you may know me, I have taught elementary school for 8 years. I was a bilingual ESL teacher and a bilingual reading specialist. My heart is with helping kids who need a boost in reading, writing, everything. And I research digital learning and online learning. I'm interested in alternative ways of learning. I'm going to read a quote, and if you have any thoughts on this quote, type them in the chat window. If you have any, you can even just use an emoticon. And so I'm just going to read it. It's from Haim Gano. I think I said his name right. He says, it's about how the teacher sets the tone. I've seen teachers post this in their classroom. I've come to the frightening conclusion I am the decisive element in the classroom. It's my daily mood that makes the weather. As a teacher, I possess a tremendous power to make a child's life miserable or joyous. I can be a tool of torture or an instrument of inspiration. I can humiliate or humor, hurt or heal. In all situations, it is my response that decides whether a crisis will be escalated or de-escalated and a child humanized or dehumanized. Any thoughts on that? I think it's true. He's written quite a bit. Most of his books are like from the 60s, 70s, 80s. Is that right? They're timeless. They're really good reading. If you can Google him after the conference or, you know, whenever, to me, he's one of my inspirations for behavior. just been thinking about how powerful the teacher is, and I'd say this is probably true for parents too, or any caregiver, is that you set the tone. And the children learn, okay, in this classroom I am not disrespectful, or in this classroom, you know, such and such is tolerated or allowed. And so here's a couple thoughts for you. These come from a fabulous book, and it's called Building Classroom Discipline by C.M. Charles. You can probably buy it online. What's great about it is it's a textbook, but it's got all kinds of different models in it. So each chapter is a different model. Do either of you want to mention anything about the Charles book? It just has a lot of good ideas. In there, Riddle and Wattenberg talk about reality-based management. So you stay calm. Instead of saying, Johnny, sit down, you're really noisy, you're out of your chair. Why are you out of your chair for the 50th time today? You don't want to do that. That's going to escalate the situation. So let's say somebody's chatting really loudly, and you're supposed to be doing silent reading. So you just very calmly say, it's hard to learn when it's so noisy. And that statement kind of speaks for itself. Here's a new teacher challenge. At least when I was a new teacher, I had this issue, is I would ask a question, and the children would all shout out the answer. Or, you know, they weren't taking turns. And then so I just say, I remind them of the rule, and I say, if we raise our hands, we can take turns sharing in a fair way. And the word fair appeals especially to younger children, but I'd say to all students. You know, if we raise our hands, we can take turns. And then if someone comes in late and it's disruptive, you don't say, Johnny, you're late and you messed up the lesson. You say, if you come in late, it disrupts others' learning. This can work for adults too. So if you're working with someone that is challenging, try these logical statements. It's called reality-based management. And they make sense, at least they make sense to me, and this has worked for me. So think of some statements and anticipate issues. And then when noise happens, Dr. Brown has used these, when noise happens, which it will, you say it's hard to learn when it's noisy, and that kind of thing. Okay, sometimes kids misbehave because they don't understand what they're supposed to be doing academically, or they don't have the tools to do the project. And I was just sharing earlier, I've had so many kids not start their work because they didn't have a pencil. Now, I don't know if kids even use pencils now in schools. They have iPads and whatnot. But, you know, getting them the right tool and then getting them started on the task can sometimes help with kids who just need that nudge in the right direction academically. If they're playing with a toy, that'll happen. Just calmly go over, take the toy, put it in your desk, and let them know they can have it later. Ultimately, if you have a severe case, a meltdown or something like that, you know, you might have to send the student to another classroom with a teacher where you've worked out a student will be removed if they're severely disruptive. And then you tell the student, you're going to Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so's for 10 minutes, bring your work. You can rejoin us when you decide to maintain self-control. So those are some great ideas. If you have any thoughts on those, type them in our chat window. We're going to hear from Dr. Lisa Martin, and then we're going to wrap up.
There we go. My name is Dr. Lisa Martin. I'm Assistant Professor in Social Studies Education here at the University of Texas at Arlington, and my research focuses on United States Pledge of Allegiance, service learning, and civic education. I'm very fortunate to have some great students in class, and one of the things to create a positive atmosphere is to catch them being good. Now, some of the benefits of catching them being good is this more calmer atmosphere. One of the drawbacks is that it takes a little bit more time, but by establishing a relationship with your students and working with them, it just helps everyone have a better experience.
Thank you, Dr. Martin. That's it for our presentation. We kind of presented different perspectives. I think everyone brings a different perspective. Do you want to add anything, Dr. Leffingwell, final words of encouragement for our teacher candidates? Oh, you have to press stop. Yeah, and then you guys, if you can say thank you in the chat window too. Dr. Leffingwell.
I think one of the things I want you to do as pre-service teachers is not worry about what will happen in student teaching. Believe in yourself. Believe that there will be a number of issues that come up. that you can deal with a lot of them, and the ones you can't, you will ask for help from your UTA supervisor or your mentor teacher. You know, my students call me. They still call me, even though they've been teaching for years. And we discuss issues. But it helps to discuss an issue. We don't always have the right answers, but it gives you support when you know you can call on someone else. Be good to yourselves. Enjoy. Teaching is wonderful. I've done it for a long time and still love it.
Yeah, thanks for the encouragement. You guys, Dr. Leffingwell really is our foremost expert on the faculty at behavior management. And so really take his tips to heart. I will post this PowerPoint on the teacher blog if you want to download it. You can also email me for the link to it. I'll put it on Dropbox or something, and you can email me for the link. And that way you can review it if you want to just go through it again. I will post the link to the recording soon. It might be a delay. The link, I've seen some of your guys' on all these webinars, so that's great. I'm glad you could join us. You can do this. The behavior, everything we've said is true because we've said it. So just take it to heart. We draw on research and experience. All of us are former classroom teachers that presented today. And then talk to experienced teachers. What works for you? You know, and then just take it with a grain of salt. Not everyone has the same behavior plan. Oh, and I don't know if Dr. Leffingwell said this. You have to have a plan. Without a plan, it won't work. So go into your student teaching with a plan. Ask your teacher his or her plan. Is there a school-wide plan? Sometimes the school-wide plan is easy to tap into, like if there's coupons or Friday recess, work towards that. Hey, you want to go to Friday recess, right? Please type any information on the webinar experience, like, you know, anything that would help us. We worked through some audio issues. Thank you. And I think that's it. Our blog is a place to go to. We'll be posting more podcasts. We have a Facebook page that you can like. And then just join us again. We hope to see you in the spring. Thanks, everyone. And we'll be logging off probably about 2 p.m. So thank you. Just type any feedback in the chat window for us. We can log out. We can log out. We can click on the video. I mean, we can click on the video. So.